Good morning. With the magic of YouTube, you don't know how many takes I've done. This is take 3. So, part 3 of 3, the conclusion of The Great Quillow by James Thurber, illustrated by the amazing Cruz, who does these beautiful fine line drawings that you will recognize from Alexander and the terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. And, we should really Google what else he illustrated. At any rate, The Great Quillow is a wonderful tale from James Thurber. And to recap real quick, Quillow, the toy maker, lives in a small town where Hunder, the giant, has come. And what Hunder does is he goes town to town, wiping out all their resources. So he is now at this town and he is busily wiping out their resources. Now, in this town, in every town, he has his demands. He demands sheep and huge chocolate and a house and clothing and boots. And it pretty well wipes everybody out. But what are you going to do against such an enormous thing? Which they, of course, discuss. One of his demands is that he gets a story. And Quillow, the toy maker, decides to tell him a story. And Quillow has come up with a way to try to get rid of Hunter. And the way he's doing it is through his story. He is telling Hunter a story of a giant that came to the town a long time ago that went crazy. And Hunter's like, ha ha, whatever. But of course, Quillow is working to make the pieces of the story come true to frighten Hunter. And the town has decided to help him, of course, because he's Quillow and he's very bright. And they are, I love in this drawing, the sheep are not dead, but in the story, they've been cooked. So the first symptom of this imaginary disease is that one day you only hear the word Wadley, and the town has already pulled that one off. And so for 15 minutes, Hunter only heard the word Wadley. Wadley, Wadley, Wadley. And Hunter's pretty flipped out. And Quillow says, well, don't worry, it's just the first symptom. As long as the chimneys on the houses are still red, you're good. Hunter looks at the town, chimneys are still red. Okie dokie. So, of course, being people who know fairy tales, we know what's coming. And Quillow goes home and they get busy on that. So this is just at the end of the Wadley scenario. And I'll back up just a little bit. And over here, you will see folks up on the roof making the chimneys black. So backing up a teeny bit, Hunter the giant rested badly on the hillside that night, twisting and turning in his sleep, tormented by ominous dreams. While he slept, the youngest and most agile men of the town, in black smocks and slippered feet, climbed to the roofs of the houses and shops, each carrying a full pail and a brush, and painted all the chimneys black. Quillow, the toy maker, worked busily all night, and by the dark hour before the dawn had made 20 more blue men. And if you've been with my videos, here are blue men from 17 years ago when I was a teacher. So that now he had 50 men in all. He put the new ones with the old others he had made in the large chest with the iron clasp. As the first birds twittered in the trees, the lamplighter and the town crier came into the toy shop. Quillow was repairing a doll for a little girl who was ill. He smiled and bowed to his friends confidently, but the palms of their hands were moist, and the roofs of their mouths were dry. Perhaps he will detect your trick, said the lamplighter. Perhaps he will smash all our houses, said the town crier. As the 3 men talked, they heard the giant stirring on the hillside. He rubbed his eyes with his great knuckles, yawned with the sound of a sinking ship, and stretched his powerful arms. The toy maker and the lamplighter and the town crier watched through a window and held their breath. Hunter sat up, staring at the ground and running his fingers through his hair. Then slowly he lifted his head and looked at the town. He closed his eyes tightly and opened them again and stared. His mouth dropped open and he lurched to his feet. "The chimneys!" he bellowed. "The chimneys are black! The malady is upon me again!" Quillow began to scamper through the cobbled streets and across the green valley as the giant's eyes rolled and his knees trembled. "Teller of tales, smallest of men!" bellowed Hunder. "Tell me what I must do! The chimneys are black!" Quillow reached the feet of the giant, panting and flushed. "Look, teller of tales," said the giant. "Name me fairly the color of yonder chimneys." Quillow turned and looked toward the town. "The chimneys are red, O Hunder," he said. "The chimneys are red. See how they outdo the red rays of the sun." "The rays of the sun are red," said Hunder, "but the chimneys of the town are black." "You tremble," said Quillow, "and your tongue hangs out, but these are indeed the signs of the second symptom. But still there is no real danger, for you do not see the blue men. Or do you see the blue men, O Hunder?" he asked. "I see the men of the town standing in their streets and staring at me," said Hunder. "But their faces are white, and they wear clothes of many colors. Why do you ask me if I see blue men?" Quillow put on a look of grave concern. "When you see the blue men," he said, "it is the third and last symptom of the malady. If that should happen, you must rush to the sea and bathe in the yellow waters, or your strength will become the strength of a kitten." The giant groaned. Perhaps if you fast for a day and a night," said Quillow, "the peril will pass." "I will do as you say, teller of tales," said the giant, "for you are wise beyond the manner of men. Bring me no food today. Tell me no tale." And with a moan, Hunder sat back upon the hillside and covered his eyes with his hands. When Quillow returned to the town, the people cheered him softly and the children flung flowers at his feet. But the blacksmith was skeptical. "The giant is still there on the hillside," he said. "I shall save my cheers and my flowers until the day he is gone, if that day shall ever come." And he stalked back to his smithy to help the locksmith make the great brass key for Hunder's front door. That noon, there was enough mutton and pie and chocolate for all the people of the town, and they ate merrily and well. Hunder the giant fretted and worried so profoundly during the day that he fell quickly to sleep as the night came. It was a night without moon or stars, as Quillow had hoped. A town owl who lived on the roof of the tavern at the sign of the Clock and Soldier was surprised at the soft and shadowy activities of the toy maker. The bat and the firefly hovered about him in wonder as he worked secretly and swiftly in the green valley at the feet of the snoring giant. The squirrel and the nightingale watched like figures in a tapestry as he dug and planted in the woods at the giant's head. If the giant thrashed suddenly in his sleep or groaned, the cricket and the frog fell silent in high anxiety. When Quillow's work was finished and he returned to his shop, the bat and the firefly moved in dreamy circles. The squirrel and the nightingale stirred freely again, and the cricket and the frog began to sing. The owl on the roof of the Clock and Soldier nodded and slept. Quillow lay down on his workbench and closed his eyes. When the scarlet men played the bells of 5 o'clock and the first birds twittered in the trees and the gray light came, Quillow awoke and opened his door. The town crier stood in the cobbled street in front of the shop. "Cry the hour," said Quillow. "Cry all's well." 5 o'clock, cried the town crier. 5 o'clock and all's well. The people crept out of their houses and on the hillside across the green valley. Hunder the giant stirred and yawned and stretched and rubbed his eyes and sat up. He saw that the chimneys were still black, but he grinned at them and winked. "The malady passes," said Hunder. "I see men with white faces wearing clothes of many colors, but I see no blue men." He flexed the muscles of his powerful arms, and he smote himself mighty blows upon his brow and chest and stomach. "Ho, counselors!" roared Hunder. "Bring me my sheep and my pie and my chocolate, for I have a vast hunger." The people fled from the streets, and behind the barred doors and shuttered windows of their houses they listened and trembled. The baker, the butcher, and the candy maker hid under their beds. They had prepared no meal for the giant, and they were afraid for their lives. But the brave little toy maker, his white hair flowing like the dandelion clock in the morning wind, ran through the cobbled streets and across the green valley and stood at the giant's feet. "Behold, I am still a whole man," bellowed the giant, thumping his brow. "I have heard the word, and I have seen the black chimneys, but I have not beheld the blue men." "That is well," said Quillow, "for he who beholds the blue men must bathe in the yellow waters in the middle of the sea, or else he will dwindle, first to the height of the pussy willow, then to the height of the daffodil, then to the height of the violet, until finally he becomes a small voice in the grass, lost in the thundering of the crickets." "But I shall remain stronger than the rock and taller than the oak," said Hunder, and he clapped his hands together. "If you are stronger than the rock and taller than the oak," said Quillow, "then stamp on the ground and make yonder cow in the field turn a flip-flop." Hunder stood up and chortled with glee. "Behold, smallest of men," he said, "I will make the cow turn twice in the air." He brought his right foot down upon the earth sharply and heavily. And my phone dropped. Dang it. The cow turned a double flip-flop in the field. Quillow bounced as high as the giant's belt, and great boughs fell from the trees. But the giant had no eyes for these familiar wonders. He stared at something new under the sun, new and small and terrible. The blue men had come. The blue men were popping high in the air. They popped up in the valley, and they popped up in the woods. They popped up from behind stones, and they popped up from behind cowslips. They popped up in front of Hunder, and they popped up behind him and under him and all around him. "The blue men!" cried Hunder. "The blue men have come! The world is filled with blue men!" "I see no blue men," said Quillow, "but you have begun to shrink like the brook in dry weather, and that is the sign of the third symptom." "The sea! The sea! Oh, the sea! The sea! Point me to the sea!" bellowed Hunder, who now stood shivering and shaking. "It is many leagues to the east," said Quillow. "Run quickly toward the rising sun and bathe in the yellow waters in the middle of the sea." Hunder, the giant, ran toward the rising sun, and the town trembled as he ran. Pictures fell from walls and plates from plate rails and bricks from chimneys. The birds flew and the rabbits scampered. The cows turned flip-flops in the fields, and the brook jumped out of its bed. A fortnight later, a traveler from afar, stopping at the sign of the Clock and Soldier, told the innkeeper a marvelous tale of how a giant, panting and moaning like a forest on fire, had stumbled down out of the mountains and plunged into the sea, flailing and threshing and babbling of yellow waters and black chimneys and little blue men, and of how he had floundered farther and farther out to sea, until at last he sank beneath the waves, starting a mighty tide rolling to the shore and sending up water spouts as high as the heavens. Then the giant was seen no more, and the troubled waters quieted, as the sea resumed its inscrutable cycle of tides under the sun and the moon. The innkeeper told this tale to the blacksmith, and the blacksmith told it to the locksmith, and the locksmith told it to the baker, And the baker told it to the butcher, and the butcher told it to the tailor, and the tailor told it to the cobbler, and the cobbler told it to the candy maker, and the candy maker told it to the candle maker, and the candle maker told it to the town crier, and the town crier told it to the lamplighter, and the lamplighter told it to the toy maker. As the lamplighter spoke, Quillow put the finishing touches on a new toy, whistling softly, his eyes sparkling. The lamplighter saw that the toy was a tiny replica of Quillow himself. "What do you do with that?" he asked. "You put it in the palm of your hand like this," said Quillow, and he put the figure in the palm of his hand, "and then you blow it like this." He blew the miniature, and the miniature Quillow floated slowly through the air and drifted gently to the floor. "I think it will amuse the children," said the little toy maker. "I got the idea from a giant." So, there you go. And I know I made mistakes. It is what it is. I have never used this story again. It's got a lot of hard words in it for little kids. But I remember fondly my grandmother reading it to me. And I can tell you even what class this was. George Apachito, Brandon Guerrero, Orvana Ganada-Negro, you must be in your early 20s. You were great kids. Brandon, your grandmother was wonderful. I loved her. Carol. George, your grandpa Paul. I really hope that you're out living wonderful lives. And I wish you well.